Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Reed, filling in tonight for Bettina Lawton here on Inside Scoop, Virginia. My guest this evening is the Executive Director of Our Daily Bread Fairfax, Lisa Wetzel. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
So, full disclosure, I am a member of the Board of Directors of Our Daily Bread Fairfax, and actually I was going to be a guest tonight before I ended up substituting for Bettina. So let me say from the outset, I'm a very proud member of our Board of Directors. I fully embrace the mission of Our Daily Bread, and one of the reasons that Bettina asked us to be here is so that the greater community understands the services that we provide, because that's not always evident from the name Our Daily Bread. Perhaps you could fill us in on how that name came to be.
Sure. So we actually are just starting a historical video to capture our 30 years, and we had some founders that came in, and during the interview I learned a lot about how we originated. I mean, we've had some stuff on file, but it was interesting to hear it straight from the mouth of one of the founders. And it started as an interfaith effort between 8 or more church congregations in the Northern Virginia area, mostly Fairfax County, Vienna, Oakton, Fairfax area. And they started out serving the homeless population, because at that time there really wasn't anything at all to help them. And over the course of, and so they decided to call it Our Daily Bread, because across all the congregations they all could relate to the concept of a daily sustenance to help people.
That is one of the basic needs.
Right. Housing,
food, definitely in Maslow's hierarchy. Right. We have to start there.
Right, right. Yeah, so it was very interesting, and so over the course of 3 or 4 years, once the county started to provide more services and other nonprofits provided more services for the homeless, we decided to change our focus to serve a population that's considered the working poor, people who are working full-time jobs, but they're barely making ends meet. And so we are still doing that today. And we provide emergency services to low to moderate income families in the Fairfax County area. Well,
what are some of the hurdles that our clients face? I mean, on a typical call or a typical referral from the county, what are the issues that have brought them to Our Daily Bread?
Right. Well, we do an annual client survey, and from those results, we have found that one of the largest, biggest reasons that people come to Our Daily Bread is because of medical issues, bills that they have to repay and are having a hard time. And then it's just being able to pay their rent. And it's very expensive to live in Fairfax County and just in Northern Virginia in general. There's been studies that have shown that it takes about $60,000 for a family of 4 to be able to thrive in Northern Virginia. And a family making minimum wage is making about $15,000. So if you have a 2-income household making minimum wage, that's still really not enough to cover the cost of just paying rent.
Right, just never mind food, childcare, automobile expenses.
Right.
Because public transportation is not something everyone has access to across the county either. I mean, our public transportation tends to be very spotty, and the more suburban the area is, the less likely that people can actually use public transportation.
Right. We're one of the few nonprofits that actually provides financial assistance for car repair. And the comments that we get back from the people that we're helping that have received this assistance, they are so thankful, because if you're working paycheck to paycheck and your transmission goes out, it's $1,200. I mean, that's a rent payment.
That's hard for any of us, but for somebody who has very limited means, it is very hard. And I know that financial literacy programs and mentoring is something else that Our Daily Bread does as well, because this is not just a matter of giving stopgap resources, which are needed, but this is also helping people to understand, with their limited means, what they can do with that.
Right. And so I firmly believe that, you've got to be able to stabilize a family that's in a crisis. So emergency food assistance, emergency financial assistance, essential. But then once we get them somewhat stabilized, then we start to work with them, teach people how to manage their limited income. And we have a financial mentoring program. We work one-on-one. We have financial counseling clinics once a month up in Herndon and in Alexandria. And Financial Planners Association in the National Capital Area, they provide the volunteers. And so it's a really great partnership between two other nonprofits and that the financial planners to provide expertise advice, that someone making a limited income could never afford. So it's teaching people those skills and giving them objective advice of how to manage their money. It's very empowering for clients to receive that kind of help.
Do you ever run into problems or hurdles where some of these people are unbanked? I mean, there are a lot of payday lenders, particularly you mentioned Herndon and Alexandria, but particularly in Alexandria, you see a lot of payday lenders.
Right.
And this is one of the things that it just
horrible cycle to get into, and and frankly, there's not a lot that we can do about it. Because they're allowed to be there, and they establish themselves in areas that are, they have a market. And so having our financial mentors and teaching classes to over 700 adults, a year, we can try to prevent people from going to those. And teaching people to save for future financial crisis is really important. It's one of the things that we really emphasize.
So in doing that having a savings account really means getting them into the banking system. In other words, helping them to understand, because I think a lot of our clients sometimes come from backgrounds or countries where banks were not to be trusted. I mean, their governments were not to be trusted, their banks were not. So you have people who come here and really, they don't speak the language very well, some of them, and they have a real issue with trusting the services, including ours. I mean, we have to establish a trust base. Do you, in the future, see that programs to serve this population are going to be more critical? I know that Elizabeth Warren has talked about redoing our postal service and keeping it relevant by serving this population.
Yeah, I think that, Stephen Fuller out of George Mason, I've attended some events where he has shown some of his research, and part of, one of the things that he has uncovered is that the trend for the largest increase in jobs in the Northern Virginia area is low-wage jobs. And that's, I think, as a regional economic community, we need to be concerned about that, because here we are, we've got a population of people that are working hourly, and if for some reason they break their leg, they can't work, they can't pay the rent, and then it becomes a downward spiral. And so, and a lot of times they don't offer health insurance. And that can be debilitating, and so I think it's affordable housing that brings up the issue of affordable housing, just having places that as we develop within our area. I mean, I think it's wonderful, but we've got to remember that our baristas, our hairdressers, our the guy,
jobs.
all the service jobs. Your clerk your clerk at Giant, is somebody that could be vulnerable, and they need to be able to have a place to live just like all of us.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Stephen J. Fuller, who's a professor of economics at George Mason University. I've also heard him speak. He does an annual economic summit in conjunction with Cardinal Bank every year, and so I heard him speak in January and saw the slides you're referring to where he's showing that the greatest percentage of growth in jobs, and it's 65% of new jobs, are going to be in service industries. They are low-wage jobs. So I'm going to give a plug because Stephen Fuller is actually speaking this Friday morning at the Tower Club through a sponsorship or a meeting of the Democratic Business Council of Northern Virginia. So I will let people know, if you want to hear more from Stephen Fuller, a presentation specifically about our regional economic growth, and that includes jobs, where the jobs are, then this Friday morning, come out to the Tower Club, 7:30 in the morning, and you'll get more information about that. But I think that is very key to all of this, is understanding that our federal contracting sector has been hit. I mean, we subsist a lot on federal contracting jobs. So a lot of what we're seeing, and we do talk about low-wage workers, but there's also middle-income families, lower middle-income families that suddenly, through some incident, end up being our clients.
Right. So during the shutdown, last fall, and then the I've forgotten the word, but anyway, just talking about the shutdown, we saw the impact of that sort of delayed. We really didn't start to see that until like November and December, because those folks that were affected were, it wasn't necessarily contractors or whatever, but it might have been the secretary, or we had one client who was a hairdresser, and she had virtually no business for several weeks, and that put her, so it does impact the economy in an interesting way that Our Daily Bread can see.
Absolutely. And so as we rearrange our regional economics, because there are going to be shifts that happen just because of developments and how companies are coming in, and the fact that more technology companies are not necessarily creating more jobs. So a lot of companies are using technology and they're actually replacing some jobs. And so this also puts people into a pool where they've now got to retool their skills. Have we run into that situation where people are coming in and it's not just that they're looking for work, but they really need to retool their skills for a different job market? Right.
Well, so I'm not sure that I can really speak to that because we don't provide assistance for for job training. We're just getting into that with our Project Bridge program. It's a pilot program. But I definitely, anecdotally, I think that there is a need for job training, and it's difficult to orchestrate, because anybody that needs job training also needs to pay the rent.
Right. So how do you get training, which is generally not paid? You're not paid to be trained.
Right. So you really have to have a community that is willing to pull together, I think, and provide a way for them to retool. And one of the things that Northern Virginia Family Services has, the program Training Futures. That's a great example of partnerships. And I was just reading in the paper the other day about how George Mason and Northern Virginia Community College and Fairfax County Public Schools are all working together to try to form this track of getting people to get to that point where they can get to college and then stay in college.
That is fascinating. Well, I think when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the services and how we work with other nonprofits in the community. So please join us when we return, and we'll talk with Lisa some more about Our Daily Bread Fairfax. Again, I'm Catherine Reed, and I'm filling in for Bettina Lawton. Thanks so much. For Bettina Lawton here on Inside Scoop, Virginia. My guest this evening is Lisa Wetzel, who's the Executive Director of Our Daily Bread Fairfax. Thank you again, Lisa, for being here. I wanted to ask you some questions so that our viewers understand not only who our clients are, but how they come to us. What is the process through our organization for how these people come to us?
Right. Well, we get our referrals through social workers that are employed through Fairfax County, and then also through the Fairfax County Public School System. We also take referrals from other nonprofits. But every one of the referrals are vetted so that they are in need. And what's curious about that is that we are sometimes serving clients that you might not think are in need. And we see this again and again when we have volunteers that are delivering food assistance, and and sometimes the house is maybe really nice, but sometimes you just don't know what is going on with a family and why that they are in crisis. They might have accumulated things in a nice house when both parents had jobs, but if they are both now not working, they're in crisis, and maybe they're looking to sell their house, but they still need to feed their family in the meantime. So you just never know what a client in need is going to look like. But our typical client is usually making $22,000 a year, and it's a single mom with maybe 2 kids, and the majority of them are working, or they're temporarily out of a job, or they are about to get another job. We provide emergency services to families for a very limited time. It's not we're not addressing a chronic need. It's really to prop up families that that would otherwise be able to sustain themselves, and they've just had a financial crisis for whatever reason. So we give them that support and help them until they can find their financial footing. So food assistance, financial assistance, and then once they are stabilized, we'll try to provide them with financial literacy services.
Right, but they do roll off, and I think it's 3 months.
4 months.
4 months, and then
for the food program.
For the food, yeah, and so it's not a very long time to try to stabilize them, but that really is our role in the community, because there are other nonprofits that provide other services that we simply don't. And we mentioned jobs training before. It's one of the things that we don't do. Job counseling is one of the things we don't do. Housing is not one of the things that we do, but we certainly work in conjunction with other services that do.
Right, and an example of that, how we work together with our nonprofits, is that we have a pool of volunteers that we train to deliver financial education classes using FDIC's Money Smart curriculum. And so we have volunteers that we're teaching about 10 classes per month at maybe 15 different nonprofits throughout the year. During hypothermia shelter that provides sleeping arrangements for the homeless during the 4-month span during the winter time. Our Daily Bread volunteers will provide classes once or twice a week, and so it's a great partnership, because we can't do it all. Other nonprofits can't do it all, but I think that the trend is to find ways to work together.
On your financial literacy training classes, is this something that you would be willing to do, or Our Daily Bread would be willing to do, for an employer who had
absolutely
a large number of minimum wage workers?
We have tried to get our foot in the door multiple times, but it's I'm not sure why, because we've got studies that show that if your employees are more financially stable, then they are going to be more focused at work and more productive. So even like if we could get into a Walmart, if we could get into a Marriott hotel, and if we could do like an early morning or a lunchtime brown bag class, that would be a terrific way to bring financial education to their
service workers.
Right.
I mean, because let's face it, I mean, these are all Marriott, for instance, a wonderful hotel, but the people who make the beds and do a lot of the service jobs, your porters or bellboys or whatever, they don't necessarily have jobs that are in the same wage category as other people who work for that corporation.
Right. But they need, and I find it interesting, because when we have our financial counseling clinic, there's no there's no income limit to who can receive those services. Although we target low-income families, but it's a generational gap.
It is.
I think financial education, personal finance. It just,
which is why they just added it to the Fairfax County curriculum. Yeah, this is a module that students must take as part of their graduation requirements. They can take it online, I understand. My children did not have that, so my kids all graduated in the early 2000s, and
mine are getting it, and it's great.
I think it's important for everybody to have. But to your point, there was a whole gap of people, even who just did not get financial literacy training either at home or at school. And so therefore they're left not really understanding the very basics of financial education.
Right, and you're bombarded with the media, and it's buy now, pay later. And
we're
it's
a consumer
easy to
culture.
It's easy to get sucked into that.
We're a consumer culture, and we're told all the time too that our economy is based on people buying things.
Right.
So, and that's from birth, from cereal to whatever.
Right.
Kids are taught that you go out and buy things, and this is a behavior that we should reward.
Right.
And I understand that, but I do think things have to change. And in this particular region, Fairfax City, Fairfax County, where we serve clients, people think of it as a very affluent place. We do not always see, or we don't recognize is a better word, we don't recognize the people that we come into contact with every day, whether it's a bus driver or it's somebody who busses tables or whoever it is. I mean, we cannot see their story.
Right.
Therefore, we do not understand their struggles, or in some way, and there are many people who never go looking for services either. I mean, there are people who don't even know how to go looking for services, people who aren't going to find us. So the gala that is coming up to celebrate Our Daily Bread's 30th anniversary has a very interesting theme.
Yeah, it's called Do You See What I See? And your radio.
Oh, that was a pretty good idea.
But anyway, we jumped on it because we loved it. You know, a lot of our fundraising events are tied to art, and this is a way to, in this idea, the concept of Do You See What I See is trying to engage the community to stand in somebody else's shoes and to express their ideas through their artwork, whatever medium they choose. And so this event will have artists that are using that theme. We've also got performers, a whole lineup of performers, and we have an artist who is live. He's going to be painting during the event. He's going to be capturing the essence of the atmosphere and the message of Do You See What I See? And you know, he'll have the finished painting at the end of the event. So that's going to be really exciting. And we've invited former staff and former board members
over the 30-year span.
Over the 30-year span, and so I'm really looking forward to that. And you know, we have a very strong grassroots base over this that we have strengthened every year. And so it would just be really terrific to be able to see all of those supporters come out. I mean, we've got, you know, 20 different congregations that supported us 30 years ago and are supporting us today. And so, you know, I want everybody to come.
We know it's interesting too, and I think some people know us only through the holiday program, or I have run into people.
True.
You know, so we who are on the inside talking about Do You See What I See, we see the core work that we do every day, 365 days a year as who we are. And yet the number of people who support us through the holiday program, like, is by exponentially in November, December, suddenly the whole world. And so I think a lot of people that I have run into are like, oh, we do the holiday program. Like, that's how they know us.
Right, well, it's great. It's actually a really great introduction. You know, people want to sponsor a family for the holidays, and we work with a lot of other nonprofits and faith communities to run the holiday program, so it's not just us. But we serve as a clearinghouse for that holiday program. But at any rate, we get a lot of new people to Our Daily Bread, and you know, they come into contact with families. It's an educational opportunity to expose their children to how someone less fortunate might be trying to make it, and so it's a educational opportunity, and then often we can hold on to those supporters the remainder of the year for other programs, other volunteering, and so that's really powerful, I think.
Well, I think, and again, at Christmas time, I think there is always
Everybody's
no matter who you are,
altruistic.
everybody does something.
Everybody wants to give at Christmas,
and they donate it.
during the holidays.
But during the summertime, talk about school children and programs that we have to try to support.
Sure. So this is another way that we work with other nonprofits. We are part of Collect for Kids, and so Collect for Kids is a model that was started by Kids Are First, and they were able to buy school supplies in bulk from Office Depot or Walmart, and then with donations they were able to purchase all the school supplies at a very deep discount. So when you would go out to purchase school supplies for $40 or whatever, we could actually purchase the same amount of supplies for $10.
Right.
So it really stretches the donor
yeah.
dollar. And we also like it because we know that the school supplies get to the children, get to the students, and we work with the social workers to identify the children in the school, and so you know they're very in tune to who needs school supplies really, and so we work with the PTAs and Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, and to purchase those supplies and then you know deliver them to the schools, and then the schools deliver them to the children. So it's a terrific program.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up Kiwanis and Rotary and some of these other organizations that are not nonprofits that we work with to serve our clients, but there are multiple nonprofits who work to serve us as our Daily Bread. And so we're hoping to see a turnout of those folks On what date?
It would be May 2nd, and it's part of Spotlight on the Arts. It's one of the events featured in Spotlight on the Arts. It's going to be at the Sherwood Center in Fairfax City from 7 to 10. The tickets are $10. You can find out more information at odbfairfax.org. We are also on Twitter and Facebook, ODB Fairfax. Search for us that way. And it should be a really nice evening.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, and I think the size of the Sherwood Center too. We've had empty bowls there. It holds quite a number of people.
Right.
So I think at this juncture, it's getting people. It's always hard to get people to buy those tickets in advance.
Yeah. But well, I hope that they do. Dolce Vita restaurant is going to be providing the food and the wine, and
oh, how nice!
Yeah, they're
Dolce
they're
Vita.
good.
Yes, Joe and Sharon Ricciardi. They are lovely people. I know them well, and they have been great supporters of ours as well.
Yeah.
Very much appreciate having you here tonight to talk to us about Our Daily Bread. I look forward to the gala on Friday, May the 2nd at the Sherwood Center, and it's odbfairfax.org for additional information, how to get tickets, and we hope to see everybody there so you can participate in supporting a very important nonprofit who supports the working poor here in our community of Fairfax City and Fairfax County.